The big weekend ahead at the bottom of the table on the final day of the season. Everton, Leeds, Leicester all find themselves in danger of dropping into the Championship. Everton will be taking on Bournemouth, Leicester take on West Ham, and Leeds are against Spurs. This is how things stand as it is. Everton will go into the round outside of the bottom three. Southampton obviously already relegated. When it comes to predictions, everybody has got Everton pretty much safe, except for Kasey Keller.
Spot the former Leicester player.
Well, what I will say, though, is he has Leeds getting relegated, so he's not going for his fellow Americans here to stay off. Kasey Keller.
It just hasn't. You know, they have a couple managerial changes, and you keep waiting for that new manager bump to see if that's going to be the catalyst that gets a little bit of a run together. It wasn't like they needed to claw back, 8 points adrift. They were above the line, and as these changes came, they can't stop goals going in their net. And I'm sorry, at some stage you have to rely on being able to grind out a result. And if you're averaging conceding 3 goals a game, I don't know how you're going to grind out a result.
Yep.
Mark and Nedum are also with us to talk more about the relegation predictions here. Why Leeds for you, Nedum?
I think it's a good question. I think sometimes when you do manage to stay up on the last day of the season, as we saw last year with Leeds, where you had the scenes of Rafinha crawling on his knees basically to the other side of the field, you believe that what you've just had was a bad season, so the next year you'll do better, you prepare better, and so on and so forth. But the reality of the situation is that's who they were as a team. And obviously they lost Calvin Phillips, lost Rafinha, possibly lost a couple more. Bamford was injured for a long while. So they could never really get into a proper flow of things. But as Kasey was saying, they've conceded so many goals. And they've gone on some runs where they're losing 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row. And these are very, very tough situations to sort of bounce back from, especially when you look at some of the players in that team. They're young, they want to play in a certain style, but they're the type of team who do well when they are already leading. The type of team does well when they're winning games already, but when the confidence is down, they have to dig in. They do have that element of playing at Ellen Road, which is great overall, but like this game here against West Ham, a lot of people thinking, West Ham, because they've qualified for a European final, they might struggle against Leeds, who are desperate for the points, but the next thing, Leeds get blown away. So I think there's a level of expectation which they've had as a club this season. They've not been able to match it at all. And then you start the season with Jesse Marsch and you finish with Sam Allardyce. It just goes to show how much things can change within football. And now all of a sudden you've got a bunch of players who are going to try and play the Sam Allardyce way, but they were never brought in for that. And who knew Weston McKennie had a long throw? I'll tell you who did, Sam Allardyce, because he would line them up and say, try this, let's see how this goes. But yeah, it's been a long, tough season for them, and I can't see them staying up, to be honest. Going
back to those American players, what's going to happen to them if Leeds do go down?
Well, I'm pretty sure Weston McKennie's, he's a Juventus player. And Juventus obviously put him out in the window to see if they could sell him, and that hasn't worked out real well. There might be, I think, some people looking at Adams. The question mark around Adams will be, can he stay fit? Can he be the guy that you can count on? Will he, can he, be fit for 30, 35 games a season? I think for Aronson, I think it might actually be the best thing for his career. I think you look at Josh Sargent, for example, at Norwich. Really, really struggled to score goals. When Norwich were in the Premier League, got moved out wide. They go down, he stays, he scores 14, 15 goals in the Championship and looks like a striker. So I think for a lot of, I think Adams has the best chance of moving. McKennie will be somewhere. It won't be Leeds. And then Aronson, I think, might just get a little bit more of a chance.
What do you think about what Kasey's saying about the American players here, Mark?
Yeah, I agree. McKennie will definitely go back to Juventus or somewhere else via Juventus. And I think Adams might get a Premier League move, again, fitness issues. Aronson, I'm not so sure. I think it's difficult with Leeds because I think this has been coming. This goes back to the Marcelo Bielsa days, right? The tail end of Bielsa when they just couldn't keep the ball out of the back of the net. And they were on a terrible run of results, and he was sacked, I think, in February last year. And they appointed Jesse Marsch, who, to be honest, didn't deserve the job. He'd been at Leipzig for 6 months and was sacked. I don't think he was qualified to manage a Premier League club. I don't think his time in Germany, gave any indication of that. Yes, he had a good time at Salzburg, but it's not the same level as Bundesliga or Premier League. And I think they were very lucky to stay up last season. They didn't stay up because of Jesse Marsh. They stayed up because they had a great win at Brentford on the final day of the season because Rafinha pulled it out of the bag. And this season, right from the off, been struggling all the way through. So they've got a squad of players that have been struggling for 18 months, maybe 2 years. And I just don't think you can stay at the Premier League level that long if you're one of the worst teams, and they are one of the worst teams. They can't defend. They haven't got a goal scorer. And that is a recipe for disaster in the Premier League. If you can't score goals, you can't keep them out.
They are coming up against Spurs. They must win, Leeds, and hope that results elsewhere go their way. Spurs, of course, in the battle for European football, but also known to wobble themselves. Any chance that Leeds do get a win in this game?
Yeah, they're playing Tottenham, remember? Anybody's got a chance against Tottenham because you don't know which Tottenham's going to turn up. The problem is, you know which Leeds is turning up, and it's everything the boys have said. A team that doesn't have a recognised goal scorer, and a team that, quite frankly, they should have looked at the problem. It shouldn't be that difficult to see the problem is defensively, and they did nothing about it. They did absolutely nothing about it. Most of those defenders that are still playing this season were part of the problem last season, and so don't be surprised when you lose lots of goals and you don't pick up points. So, you know, Leeds can't really blame anybody but themselves. They've got themselves in a horrible situation where even if they win, which they could do because it's Spurs, you don't know what's going to happen with them, not going to be enough, and it won't be because they don't beat Spurs.
But if you look at the three at the bottom, they all are playing matches that you think they should win. And because of either the circumstances of the team they're playing, as Tottenham have capitulated so much, particularly in the second half of the season. But, you know, West Ham now safe. What do they, you know, could they already be just kind of cruising? And, you know, Everton probably should win. But I do see a scenario, and this is putting my Leicester hat on.
Really?
Yes.
Never noticed.
With the goal difference, let's look at the goal difference where Everton draw, Leicester win, and Leicester stay up on goal difference.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.